Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brett Bovin. This show for all hunters and outdoorsmen alike. I like to call it the electronic campfire. For all those of you that are unfamiliar with the show, we do a live show Tuesday and Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and each week we cover a new state. This week, for instance, we are in New Mexico, so I'm looking forward to learning more hunting techniques out west, because I can't wait to get out west and hunt elk and mule deer eventually in my lifetime before I die. Couple of notes here. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that you want to share during the show, feel free to drop them in the comment section and we'll pop them up during the screen, pop them up in the screen, and we'll answer them and address them while we're doing the show here. The Deucer is not here with us tonight, so he had a little bit of a toothache. So I got to make fun of him for that now because of it. And the other dude, he, new teammate, will be getting him announced here shortly. He got shipped off to a different shift, so we're gonna be missing him. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, feel free to send us a message on our social media platforms, or you can send me an email to brettbovin@whitetailadvantage.com. We also have a saying on the show that says, put your cord in a slot machine. What I simply mean by that is to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport. It's a dying lifestyle. For instance, here in Michigan, it's very bad of how many number of hunters we're losing. And I just want to say this real quick. My wife sent me this article about some new hunting regulations here in Michigan. And one thing that stood out about this report was the number of hunters that we've been losing. For instance, in 2023, there was 527,000 hunters. In 2003, there's 7,433. 43, yeah. So that's basically 216,000 people that we've lost in 20 years. Divide that by individual years, you're looking at about 11,000 per year that we've been losing in the last 20 years. So, like I said, help put your cord in the slot machine, help share a show. Spread the word about hunting. Everyone says out there, I believe it's the main reason people are out there saying that we're losing hunters is because people are aging out. I get that. I see that. That's one of the problems, and people aren't coming in to replace them. However, I do strongly believe another main factor of we're losing hunters is because this new day and age and culture of this woke stuff and cancel culture bullshit. It's sad, and people aren't teaching their kids to get outside and play in the woods and teach them about hunting. They'd much rather sit on their phones and watch TikTok all day. Anyways, enough of my rant. Little housekeeping notes here. If you use the code GP10, you get 10% discount off Gilly Puck products. Make sure to also check out MAGNUS BROADHEADS and go check out Grizz Media as well to help you with your social media platforms. All right, enough of me and my boring intro crap. I'm sure you guys already know it by now. But anyways, and side note, if you notice, if you're listening to the audio version of this, we got a new backdrop that I made. So I put up here, we got some nice soundproofing stuff here, nice orange and black for the theme of our colors here. Got some lights, and it just looks so pretty. Makes me look amazing. Anyways, like I said, the Deucer's not here, so bear with me about moving some stuff around. And enough of me tip jagging. Let's get our guest tonight, Derek. So let's get this going. What's up, Derek?
What's going on, Brett? Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for taking time out of your day to come on the show, man. I really appreciate it. Oh, we lost Derek. He might pop back in here. We were talking good for a minute there, and then all of a sudden we're having some technical difficulties here. Let's just kind of... All right, Derek, if you can hear me, I'm going to bump you out and then bump back in. Okay, brother? see if we get him back in here. Anyways, so yeah, this week we are in New Mexico. We're back to our regular scheduling programming of Tuesdays and Thursday shows. Like I said, we got some new backdrop here. So it makes me look pretty. I'm gonna get a drink of water here because my throat's all scratchy. Anyways, I will make an announcement here real quick while our guest's trying to get back into the system here. We are going to be doing a fun live show on the last Sunday of September. Oh, there it looks like he's back. So we'll get more back into that announcement later.
Yeah,
What's up, Eric?
I don't know what happened. Somebody called me and then I lost my my feed. So anyway, what I was telling you, Brett, was hopefully after we have this podcast, we'll get some guys encouraged to come hunt New Mexico. So could be you, it could be your buddies. Who knows, man? So hopefully you'll gain an insight to some New Mexico Advantage to go along with your whitetail stuff.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. And I know this already from talking to you already, so you're a guide. But for people that might not know you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Sure, man. I grew up in New Mexico, born and raised here. Started hunting when I was 8. My dad was one of the ones that got me involved in hunting. And then my uncles took me out, rabbit hunting and doe hunting and everything. Really, my dad was, instrumental in getting me out to deer and elk hunt. And, we weren't always successful, but it drove me to learn more about hunting. And then when I became an adult, shortly after, I finished college and stopped playing sports and all that stuff, I just, wanted to be in the outdoors. And if I couldn't draw a tag myself, then I was helping other people that did have a tag. And so that's what kind of drove me to guiding. And since 2002, I've been a guide. And in New Mexico, a lot of people don't know this, but if you're wanting a guide in New Mexico, there's quite a bit of criteria that guides have to go through. They have to pass a test from the Game and Fish. They have to work for an outfitter or a landowner for 3 years, and then gain experience doing that. And then if you've done that for 3 years, then you can apply for an outfitter license, and of course have all the backing for money for the insurance and all that stuff, and it gets a little more costly. But since 2005, I've been an outfitter in New Mexico, and I've done a lot of guiding and helped a lot of kids. And I know when your intro, you talked about the problem with people falling off the table, hunters especially, and I truly believe it's because people don't get kids out in the outdoors, man. So I've done my part and tried to bring kids, out hunting. And one of my goals is to help a dad or somebody that wants to hunt in New Mexico remove those hurdles of, what do I need to do to go get a tag? In New Mexico, they have a lottery system. So you have to put into the general population, and they select your application, and then they go through your first choice, second choice, third choice to see if there's room for you in those areas. So the New Mexico is a lottery system for all big game. And, a lot of people don't realize that they can come hunting, or their first year to put in, they can draw a slammer tag their first year. They don't have to put in for multiple years or have a bunch of points built up to get a tag. Every year it's free game. So that's one thing you need to know for New Mexico and that's unique. Not every state's like that. I know Arizona and Colorado, the states that are surrounding us, you have to have points to get those good areas. So anyway, most of our guys, they put in for 5-6 animals in hopes of getting one to draw one good tag, so it's very rare that people draw 2 different species in one season. So anyway, that's a little bit about the draw and how that works.
Because I remember talking to Jared from Nevada. He said that they're kind of similar to you, where you just throw your name in the lottery and you get your pick. But then it said if you get your name drawn, you have to wait X amount of years. I think you said 10 years before you can re-enter your name back in for another tag. Is that similar to out there in New Mexico?
Well, no. I mean, in New Mexico, everybody's on the same playing field every year. It doesn't matter if you drew last year. Every year, it's a clean slate. So I know some hunters that have drawn three years in a row, great tags. On the flip side of that coin, I've had guys that put in for 3 years in a row and didn't get drawn. So the good thing about what some outfitters can do in New Mexico is they get access to landowners, ranches, big ranches, landowner tags. So that's another way that you could come hunt New Mexico. Those typically are a little more costly because you have to pay the landowner for access. Like me as the outfitter, I have to lease those properties, and then I could sell those tags to hunters and hunt on those ranches. So what I do to encourage people is to go through the draw, and we help them do that. We have 3 of us here on staff that help people put in for the draw. In New Mexico, it starts middle of January and it runs to March. So from January to March, it's like an open enrollment. So you put in, you create a profile, a customer ID number with the Game and Fish of New Mexico, and then you put in for hunts in that portal. So you select your species, your weapon of choice, whether it's rifle, muzzleloader, or archery, and then from there, the computer randomly generates the draw, and the draw typically ends at the 3rd week of March, and then about 4 or 5 weeks later, the results come out in April. So in April, you knew if you drew or you did not draw. And then, so what we do with the people that we put in, or that we helped put in and consulted them, the ones that did not draw, then they're able to access our ranches that we have contracts with. So it's like a 4th chance to come hunting. So we do a lot of, we sell a lot of hunts after the draw. And if you're lucky, like this year was 20%, we drew 20% of public land hunts that we put into the draw. So that's huge for us. And then the rest of the 80% get a chance to entertain the thought of going elk hunting on a ranch or oryx hunting, like the Gemsbach. We have some unique animals in New Mexico that are really good to eat. And then we have some that are not so good to eat, like the ibex and the Barbary sheep. So, but those are pretty sought after trophies. So it just depends on, what you're looking at harvesting and what you're wanting to pursue. We help hunters of all ages. Some of our best hunts have been father-sons, and that could be a 45-year-old son and a 65 or 75-year-old dad, or it could be a 25-year-old that's hunting with his brother, or a 40-year-old that's hunting with their 18-year-old son. So we do a lot of that stuff. We do a lot of like we offer a semi-guided hunt, which you could do go into the draw with another person on your application. So 2 or more people is what I consider a group, and we do a $3,000 2-day hunt. But if you draw that, then the guide stays there for 4 days. So he's got 2 days with one hunter and 2 days with the other. So that's been a really good hunt for us. It gets our guides out in the field more, and it gets them more those hunters that are budget budget conscious, an opportunity to come hunt, a world-class area for $3,000, not $20,000 like some of these people are paying. That's crazy. They come out here and they're paying huge amounts of money for landowner tags, and it's just part of the game. People pay it every year, so it keeps going up. So, but we try to do what we can for the blue collar guy. That's what we're geared around. Is I was a teacher and a coach for a long time, and I kind of I like getting those firefighters around the campfire, or policemen, or teachers, coaches. They don't make a whole bunch of money, but we take those hunts serious because they've spent years saving up for these type of experiences, and we want them to have a good experience. So that's our our bread and butter, man. That's why our prices are middle of the road. They're not out of reach for any budget. So
That leads me to a couple questions here. First off, do you have any aoudads out in New Mexico?
yes, we do. And our Game and Fish calls them Barbary sheep. They're the exact same species, but for some reason, our game department calls them Barbary sheep, but they're aoudad. In Texas, they're aoudad. In New Mexico, they're Barbary sheep, but they're the same. And so, yes, we do have some really good areas where we have a very good, healthy population, a very huntable population of Barbary sheep. Yes.
So now I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate here type deal.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be hard to go out west because, like I said, I was a cop for 7 years. And first off, thanks for taking those type of hunts with those type of people, and it means a lot to myself. But it's hard for people to save up the money to go spend 10 plus grand to go out to these places to go hunt. So I think a lot of people might think, and I'm just assuming, but you know what people happens when you assume things, but they might think of people out there like, well, they're just in for the money. They just want their money. They don't care about the average Joe people that have to save up the money to go do it. They're like, oh, well, I got my 10 plus grand. Oh, you came out here for 5 days. Fuck it. Sorry.
Yeah.
You kind of, you hear those stories and it's like, well, fuck them. Basically, I don't want to go out there and deal with it. What separates you from those other type of places? And what would you tell the people that might be thinking that type of mentality?
Well, I'm like any other guy, any other hunter. If I was going to go to Alaska or any other state that I've never been in, never hunted in, I'm going to want help, and if I can afford a guide, if it's reasonable, I'm going to do that. And whether I'm making $1 or I'm not, I mean, cause we do a lot of hunts. We'll donate hunts and fishing trips to wounded warriors and those kinds of things. And it doesn't matter to me, the money. What matters to me is the experience. And I've been doing this for 23 years. If it was about the money, I would have been washed out long ago, because people can see right through that. I mean, I have guides that are very good guides and they want to become an outfitter, and pretty soon they're an outfitter. And then, 5 years later, you never hear of them again because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, I've taken a lot of guys for free because of the relationships. That's what it's really about. It's about sitting around the fire. And if you have a good hunt and you're in the animals and you kill something, that's always excellent. But to me, a good guide is going to produce a good experience regardless of those uncontrollables. The uncontrollables meaning you can't control what the animals do. You can't control the weather. So to me, a good guide is somebody that provides a service, and maybe they don't see very many animals, but that at the end of that hunt, that hunter wants that guy he wants to book again, and he wants that guy to have him. So to me, that says a lot about taking care of people. It's about the relationships. It's about, just taking care of hunters, and providing a service for, just like, teachers and coaches, the good ones, they're in it for the right reasons because they care. They're not in it for the right reasons they're not in it to make money. They're in it to actually provide a service and provide a worthy experience for these people. So we take every hunt seriously, like we're paying for it ourselves. Because honestly, for me as the outfitter, I am paying for a lot of those hunts. And I want those guys to have a good experience, and I don't want my money to be wasted. And I definitely don't want their money to be wasted, because at the end of the 5 days or the 2 days or however long it is, the ultimate goal is they want to come back and hunt with us. And, 99% of the time, that's the case. And so I attribute that to our guides. And, I offer a lot of guiding services to people that are firefighters, teachers, coaches, and those are people that have an understanding for providing a service and caring for people. So hopefully that answered your questions about what's different between us. And we also, what I try to do is I try to encourage all my guys to pray over the harvest. And I always open up the hunt with prayer. And I think our forefathers that built this country way back when almost everybody hunted, I think that was their intent, to be able to take care of the land and take care of people at the dinner table. So anyway, I think that's important. So when we do harvest an animal, I encourage our guides to pray and give thanks, and because that's a life. God created that animal just like He created you and I, and so that's, I think, what separates us from a lot is we actually do that kind of stuff in camp. We pray about things, and it's not all about the kill, but it's about having a good experience and treating people right. So
I was gonna have you as my guide, my first hunt out there, but leading up to talking with you from days leading up to now, but after what you just said with the praying part, you got me sold. You got me hook, line, sinker, whatever you want to call it. No, that's amazing, because I do the same thing before I go out in my own personal hunt out in the woods, and then every time I get a deer, since my dad was teaching me at a young age of you got to say a prayer over the animal because you took its life. And I think a lot of people miss that, or they no longer doing that anymore. But I'm a Christian guy, I believe in God, and I think that is a very humbling experience. And I did want to also mention that you said earlier, like that's somebody's hunt that they spent, let's just say, 5 years trying to save up to go out there and hunt. And they got, let's just say, I don't know how long your days are, but I'm just going to assume 5 days. You got 5 days to hunt. And you're basically saving up. All right, I'm saving up basically a year's worth of salary that I put away for one day. I'm going to do it for 5.
Yep.
That must suck. Well, I don't want to say it like that. What's it feel like as the guide, knowing that you've done everything you can, but sometimes, obviously, you got weather stuff, you got other things going on that you might not be successful.
Yeah.
How do you tell the hunter that right off the get-go, and try and tell them at the end of it, saying, "Listen, we're sorry.
I mean, I usually, like, that happened. This happened a handful of times in 23 years where we had a bad hunt, just whatever the reason. Maybe it was the migration or some lions moved into the territory and pushed the deer or elk out. And we didn't have opportunities. And so it's usually not like the guide apologizing. It's the hunter going, man, you freaking worked your ass off. And I don't know what else we could have done. I mean, we're either glassing all day long, or we're hiking up by every glassing point, or we're going in and doing everything we can. We're calling people, hey man, you see any movement over here? We do a lot of stuff like with the team concept. Since I was a coach for a long time, I train my guides a lot the same, to help one another. And as an outfitter, I'm trying to help as many people as possible. I'm trying to help the camp cook, get those jobs. I'm trying to help the guides. And so that rubs off on the guides, and they help each other out a lot. But I mean, they're hanging cameras and doing all that stuff. And usually the hunters know and appreciate that effort. They've scouted the area. They know every road in that country. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it. And the hunters know that right away within the first day or two. If they're looking at their phone wondering where they're going to go next, that's not a good thing. So I mean, we have all that stuff covered, and we're very well prepared, I believe our guides are. And so it's not a question of like, man, that was a bad hunt or that was a bad service. It was more like, man, the animals just didn't cooperate. So to answer that question, I mean, and I always tell our guys they're going to have an opportunity to shoot. We're going to do our best and work as much as we can, as much as possible, to get them an opportunity to see game, and then also to have a realistic chance of shooting. And that goes into what can the hunter do? Can the hunter get to some of these places? Does he have physical limitations that we can't maybe hike up all those mountains, or can they not shoot for a certain distance? Maybe they're wanting to use their grandpa's gun that's good to 200 yards. Well, most of our shots are 300 to 600, and that's what a lot of the guys that we have from back east and the east and the west coast, they don't realize that in the west you got to see far and you got to shoot further. Usually, now we get as close as we can, but a lot of times it's going to be helpful if you can shoot longer distances, and that goes with bows. Our bow ranges are 60 to 80 yards. Typically, our rifle ranges are 300 to 600 yards. So, and then there's those times that we can get into 30 yards and kill something, but usually 90% of the time it's the latter. It's the longer distances, because out here you can see for miles, man. Having good glass, and all of our guides have the best glass that you can get. I mean, they're using Swarovskis, and they're using the spotters, and they're putting everything they can into their gear to benefit the hunter. So, and the hunters see that right away. It's like, oh, geez, man, those binoculars are top of the line. That spotting scope's the best you can get. I mean, that rifle, his backup gun is, that's a custom rifle that's good to 1,000 yards. All those things. The hunters see that right away, and they know we're prepared. They know we're serious. And so if they've hunted long enough, they realize that, we've done everything we can in those situations, which is, like I said, in 23 years of doing this, there's been a handful of hunts that have been not good. And then I've sometimes, you made it right with the client. You didn't get an opportunity to shoot. So, I'm going to discount your hunt next year. So we do those things to make it right, because again, it's not about the money. It's about wanting those guys to come back and taking care of them and doing everything we can. Just like I would expect if I were to go hunt with you in your neck of the woods, I'd be like, I have no idea what I'm doing, man. I'm coachable. Let me know what I need to do. Do I need to sit in a stand? Do I need to sit in a ground blind? Coach me up, so, and I spend a lot of time on the phone with hunters trying to get them acquainted with what we do out here and get them to realize these are the challenges that we're going to have to be prepared for. Physical limitations, shot distances, the animal that we're pursuing, what those animals are, what their habits are, and what their weaknesses are, because we're just a predator out there, just like any other coyote or lion or bear. So we gotta study them and know how to bring them to the table.
That kind of leads me into my next question, and it's kind of like a two-parter type question. Ultimately, it comes down to the hunter, obviously. So, like for me, I'm shooting with a bow. I had to learn to be able to shoot up to 80 yards, and personally, I can shoot at a target at 90 yards. That's not the issue. But for me, out in the woods and my hunting whitetail deer, I feel comfortable at 60, and that's with variable wind conditions in my favor, obviously. So, what would you tell an archery hunter and or a gun hunter, or just a hunter in general? What would you tell them to start preparing for to come out west? And then the follow-up question with that is, do you spend time on the phone with these hunters of like, do you spend days or weeks or something like that cumulatively of telling them, all right, this is what we're looking for, and asking them prepare for this?
Yes, I spent a lot of time trying to mainly I want to understand the hunter. Like, I ask them, what's your dream hunt look like to you in your mind? Is it an elk hunt? Is it a mule deer hunt? Is it an oryx hunt? Whatever that is, I get them to tell me what in their mind, what that is. Is it spot and stock? Is it on animals? Is it on an e-bike? Whatever that is for them. And then once I learn what they like and what their interests are, then I'll start, talking to them about the areas that we can do that in New Mexico. So New Mexico is it's a humongous state, and there's a lot of different topography, a lot of different ecosystems that we have. And every one of those situations is a little bit different. So I get to know the hunter, what they want first, and then I kind of focus those needs and those wants into a plan for the draw. Now, once the draw happens and they're coming out, then we switch gears and I tell them, okay, now since you've got a tag, these are the things that you're going to have to be aware of. Maybe you're good sitting for hours on end, 4 or 5 hours at a time. I'm not. But if the hunter is built like that, if they're used to that, then they might be okay sitting at a water hole in a lot of country where there's a lot of elk in there, and there are a lot of elk hitting that water hole, opposed to a guy that has limitations of distances. Okay, so if you can only shoot, some guys can only shoot 40 yards, and so we work with those limitations, and we either have to get that animal to call in to 40 yards, or we have to set that person up within a 40-yard shot. So a lot of times it could be in a ground blind, or it could be us helping call that animal into that guy's vital range. So those are the things that we do to work with the hunters and get them to us. If that's the challenge, it's like working with those limitations. Like you just said, you're solid to 60. So I wouldn't put you in a situation where you might have to shoot 80, 90 yards. Some of our guys that come out here and hunt with us, they're the best of archers in their archery club, and they can shoot distance. So they may have a little more variability in where we put that stand or where we put that ground blind. But we just work with each other, each hunter, and those those limitations. But we try to coach them up to shoot. We always tell them, if you're a trophy hunter and you're wanting to kill that 180-inch deer, I don't care what distance they tell me. If like my son had a really tough tag last year. It was a good tag, but it was a tough hunt in January, and he really worked hard at shooting accurately at long distances, and he got to 120. And I mean, that's in a pie plate 3 out of 3 times. And he was ready to go to 120, and the guides were like, that's what you got to shoot. And so he spent every day at the on the target, banging those long distances so he can be ready to go. Obviously your situation has to be pretty dang good, like can't have any kind of crosswinds and all that stuff. So I mean, but he answered that challenge of shooting that. Now I wouldn't tell every guy that, but whatever that distance is for you, whether it's 60 or 40 or 80, that trophy buck's always going to be like right at that edge. It's going to be maybe 5 yards further than you're comfortable with. So in hunting, you got to make that call. There's a lot of gray area. Some guys won't do it. They won't shoot beyond what they feel comfortable with, and some guys do. And so that's the thing about hunting. There's a lot of gray area, and you got to be right in your mind with what's ethical for you, and so again, that's another thing to talk about is, what is ethical shooting for this hunter. Some guys won't test that limit, or some guys are like, man, if it's that dream buck on the wall, I may shoot 10 more yards that I'm not comfortable with, but it's just working with those situations. And I mean, some of my best hunts have been times when the guy didn't shoot, and I'm like, what, that was a great call. Because if you'd have wounded that buck, you'd have never, forgiven yourself. You know what I mean? So it's all that too that goes into it. So again, it's about the experience and treating those hunters right. And 9 times out of 10, when they come out here, it's exactly what they were told. And so that again builds confidence, and then that goes into those guys wanting to come back before the hunt even started, or as it starts. They're like, oh yeah, this is exactly what we talked about, or whatever. So anyway, it's just being honest with the guys. I wouldn't tell you if you told me you had a limitation and you could only shoot 40 yards, and I just tell you honestly, man, it's going to be tough to get in within that range. But we can do it. We can try our best to do it, and sometimes we can, and sometimes we can't. So just being honest with them and And, again, it's just about taking care of them and working with those limitations.
Yeah, I think you really have to humble yourself as the hunter of, listen, this is my limitations and what you're willing to push the envelope with and what you're not. Because
Yeah.
you're also if you're taking a look at as me as a whitetail hunter, you're looking at a deer that's like this big compared to an elk that's like this big. So it's like, you know what, if it's at like 85 and I'm willing to shoot out to 85, and obviously I would have been practicing for a while leading up to it. If I felt comfortable, that's the only time I'm gonna be doing it. And I'm not gonna just be like, you know what, that's like the giant world record elk deer out there, and I only feel comfortable still at 70. I'm not going to feel like you said. I'm not going to take that shot to try and make myself feel better or whatever. I'm not going to hate myself like, I didn't take that shot. I'm going to hate myself more if I shot or I really seriously injured the animal more than
Yeah.
I hate those hunts myself. I'm hunting my
Yeah.
backyard basically. And
Nobody wants to wound an animal and it get away and die and not recover it. And it dies
exactly.
3 days after the hunt's over, So no one wants to do that. And, so encouraging them to take good shots. And we, like our rifle hunts, we try to video every shot just because we want to know where that bullet went in. We want to know what vital organs are impacted. So we know to give it more time or less time. Or if it's a clean mess, then we don't have to spend an hour looking for blood. If we see it on the video, if we see it through our phone on, plugged into a phone scope or a phone cam. So we do a lot of that stuff. Again, I think that's a guide has to have good wherewithal to know when the shot's going to happen and to be ready to get that footage. And, obviously some hunts out west, it's kind of like you jump out of the truck and you run to a ridge and you get settled up for a shot at 400 yards. And I mean, sometimes that happens, or sometimes it's more calculated and we stalk into, we've seen that herd of elk feeding at 2 miles away, and we stalk into to whatever distance is good for them, 300 yards, 350, and then we get them set up for the shot and we video it, and we get a great, shot, or, whatever it may be. Those are things that the guides bring a lot of experience and expertise to a hunt. So, and I'm fortunate to have a lot of guides that can do that. And, again, like I talked about, videoing those shots, most of the time when you feel like you've taken a good shot and it feels right, and you're like, I know I hit that animal, but on the video you see it sail right, that vapor trail sail right over the back or right between the legs, and it's like, I mean, we're always wanting to put ourselves in a successful situation in our mind, but then having that technology to back you up, or maybe you're like, I didn't really feel good about that shot, but look, man, you hit him right in the shoulder, and then we're going to give it, 30 minutes, and we're going to go find this thing. Or it's like, you're a little far back, man. We're going to let this thing sit overnight and go bed down and die. And we're not going to chase it. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that stuff that goes on in the hunt, and it helps the recovering of that animal. And we don't have a lot of times where we've had wounded animals escape. So.
Right. PSEMO 100 here made a comment saying, if I wanted to do an archery hunt, you would recommend bringing a rifle along with me, I assume.
Now, explain that again. You had a rifle, a bow hunter, but he's saying that I would recommend a rifle.
No, he's saying, it looks like he said, if I wanted to do an archery hunt out there, are you recommending bringing a rifle along with me as well?
Well,
Or
no,
instead?
you have to pick your weapon. Like, you can, but the way New Mexico works is you pick your weapon and you have to stay with that weapon. But a rifle tag says any legal weapon. So on a rifle, on any legal weapon tag, you can use a bow, a muzzleloader, or a rifle. But if you're just hunting in the archery season, you have to just use archery gear.
So they have different I guess let's lead into this question is, what's the seasons like then out there?
So the seasons for archery, they usually start in July for antelope. Each species is a little bit different. For elk, it's September. So there's usually 2 elk seasons, a first season and a second season in September. And then muzzleloader season is in early October. And then rifle season is usually mid to late October, November, and December. And then some of our deer hunts for mule deer, September is the first archery hunt. And then there's a muzzleloader hunt late September. And then rifle season is after that. So usually it's archery season is first, then muzzleloader, then rifle.
So you have to declare yourself as, this is what I'm going to be hunting with this weapon, but they also have the option of any weapon.
Yeah,
now,
like if you had a rifle tag in November, December, and your tag says any legal weapon, and you wanted to use a bow for the first couple days, you probably could. I've not had many people do that at all. In 23 years, I've never had someone switch weapons. But you could. Legally, you could do that. You could, hunt the first couple days or 3 days with a bow and then switch it up. And then as long as you're, using any legal weapon, would mean an archery, a bow, a muzzleloader, or a rifle. So
and I'm assuming you as the guide can help navigate those type of paperwork stuff.
Like in New Mexico, the game gets skittish. As soon as they start hearing gunshots and muzzleloader shots, they know what's going on. So they're going to give their cushion just went to 300-400 yards, whereas you might be able early on in the summer and in the early fall, you might be able to get pretty close to those animals. But once they start hearing gunshots, man, they get skittish, especially antelope. Antelope, they see a vehicle stop on the road, they're running. So they get pretty coached up pretty quick, or else they're in the back of someone's truck.
Now the question I told you that I was going to wait for the show because I wanted the real feel of it. All right. You have me as your hunter now. You got me for 7 days.
Okay.
And I'm not out there. Obviously, let's shoot the biggest buck possible. Obviously, let's do that. But you know what? I'm not after that. I want the most craziest, whacked out deer that we can find. How hard is that for you to find me? Like, I want one that just looks like, it doesn't even look like an elk. It's like
yeah, that's a great question, because we have those guys that are like, I've killed 4 or 5 typical mule deer. I want a funky one. I want one with a drop tine. I want one with some trash. And so we usually have good idea where to find those genetics and what units those are in. And a lot of it is all about scouting, like, oh yeah, man. Yeah, a lot of times we're sending pictures out before the hunt starts, and like, would you shoot this buck, or would you shoot this buck, or the same thing with an elk. Look at this thing; it's got a funky club on the side, and some guys really like it. Like, oh man, I've never seen that before. I'd love to have that on my wall or in a Euro or whatever it might be. And then some guys are like, no, I want a typical 6x6, no broken tines. It just depends on the guy, and that's what's cool. A cool challenge for us is we got to know where multiple animals are in order to deliver, because, you could be a guy that's been hunting for your whole life and maybe only has 2-3 hunts left. The way this is now, it's like you can put in for 5 years and not get drawn, but you might get drawn, 5 times in that 5 years, but you never know that. So, we do our best to, allow the hunter to make those choices. And sometimes he gets to the last day and it's like, I just want a legal buck so I can take some meat home. That's totally up to the hunter. So we encourage them to stay with what they're what their mark is, whatever the trophy in their mind, whether it's a 160 class deer or 180 class deer. Some guys are real specific to, like, I've killed 5 deer, mule deer, and I've got 4 on the wall, but I don't have a unique one, or I don't have a 195 plus type deer. And so we do our best to find those deer and deliver, man. So that's a huge challenge, but it's also rewarding when you put in the effort to scout all those days, all those trips, and all those checking those cameras and finding those different bucks and knowing a little bit about where they're at and going to find them, and then getting them in, working with the hunter's limitations to get a good solid shot off on something like that. It's all so rewarding. So
Yeah. I'm don't get me wrong, I want to shoot that typical nice giant buck. That would be amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But it's like you see them all over the place with these. Oh, that looks like your typical giant 10-pointer whitetail deer. That looks like your typical giant mule deer, elk deer. Awesome. We've all fucking seen the pictures. I want
yeah,
the one that stands out that you've never seen before. I want that motherfucker on my wall and be like, look at here. He's got this whole left side is just one beam, and then this right side, he's got like a million things going off on the right, and it's like that dude I want on my wall, and it's just I like that type of thing. It's cool to me because they're unique, and that's what I find cool about them.
The last hunt I had personally as a hunter, I shot a 28-inch wide fork horn, and I knew that the trophy guys didn't want to shoot a fork horn, but when it was that wide and I saw that Roman nose, and that I knew that was a big mature buck. That I don't know how old that dude was, but he had a big old Roman nose, and he was a very mature deer. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to go get that dude. And it happened, and it came into sight and took the shot, and it was a great experience. And a lot of guys were like, why would you shoot a fork horn? But I was like, dude, it's 28 inches wide, and it's probably an 8-year-old buck, so to me, that's, I like shooting mature bucks, whatever their genetics is it's, I mean, it's important, but it's not like the only thing, So again,
Right.
like you said, you might see something that was like, we've had guys that have been guides in other states that have come out here and have been hunting with us, and like, you know what, that kicker on the side, man, that's awesome. I'm going to shoot that thing because I've never shot anything like that. He had a 3-inch or a 4-inch kicker coming off of his main beam, and that's cool. So I'm going to hammer that dude. So, it just depends on what triggers that fancy,
Right. I want that grandpa buck.
Yeah.
PSD Mobile Hunter here stated, he made a comment. I understand now. I'd want to do archery only then because I don't gun hunt. Also, do you have hunters shoot at various distances to see where their limits on distance are?
Yeah, we encourage the hunters to shoot when they come out. Number one, to check their zeros. When you're traveling, your bow case or your gun case is getting bounced around. You got all kinds of stuff on your mind. You're worrying about if you got the right underwear and your lucky underwear in the bag, and your gun or your bow might be bouncing all over the gear. And so we want them to come out early enough to shoot, usually the day before, and shoot and make sure that their equipment's dialed in and it's trued up. They're checking their zeros, and they're making sure their arrow flight's good in this environment, because our air is different than your air where you're at. So they're going to shoot and do some confidence type shots. With our rifle hunters, we always have them shoot one of our guns in case one of their guns, they drop it, or if we're on a spot and stock and they slip and fall and their gun hits the ground and we're not sure if that zero's on, we're going to have a backup gun ready to go. So we always encourage them to shoot one of our guns once. Just, they might have to shoot it for whatever reason, just as a backup. It's another security thing. And that's why we say, we take it serious, man. We do the best for our hunters, and then we usually have a backup gun for them just in case something. Nobody wants to come out here and drop their gun, but it happens. And so if you're on that spot and stock and you're 2 miles in and you slip and fall and you don't know if your gun's on, it's always good to have another backup gun. But anyway, so those are things that we do to help our hunters, and we do all we can to keep them clued in and in this environment up here. So yeah, we want them to shoot. And in New Mexico, I will tell you though, you can mix your weapons in your application. In other words, let's just say you're an elk hunter and you want to hunt in the rut. Well, some of our areas, the rut is during muzzleloader season. So you might be like, I can use any weapon as long as I'm in the rut. So yeah, I would like to use a bow, so I'm going to put in for the second bow hunt. If I don't draw that, I'm going to put in for the same unit, but during the muzzleloader hunt. And then, then my third choice might be a rifle. So that's the cool thing about New Mexico is you can pick 3 different weapons for each species if you wanted to do that. But whatever you get, you have to use. In other words, if you draw out for an archery tag, you can't use a rifle.
So. Wow.
That's
so we're not going to tell my wife if I come out to New Mexico. It's like, you just spent $5,000 going out to New Mexico to go hunt, and I have to get a text message that you say you broke your bow that you spent $10,000 on, and you have to buy a brand new one. You're fucking walking home, and you're gonna.
Oh yeah, yeah. We did have a guy last year that his buddy. I'm glad it wasn't one of our guides, but his buddy ran over his bow, and he was a left-handed shooter. And so it's like, it's one of those things. Like, you have several right-handed bows in the camp, and at the lodge, but there's not a lot of left-handed bows around every camp, And so when his buddy ran over that bow, it pretty much just deflated him, because he was like, that's I only brought one bow. He didn't have a backup bow, so yeah, that was a bummer.
I don't really know any left-handed bow hunters personally, and the only people that I know that shoot left-handed is Eddie that I talked to last week from New Jersey, and my good buddy Dan. He's a part of the team here in Whitetail. He shoots left-handed, but the only reason they both shoot left-handed is because they've had bad shoulder problems on their right shoulder. So that's the only reason why they shoot left-handed. Outside of them, they're kind of like outliers, but everyone shoots right-handed. So you really, that's a bummer to have that situation run into.
It was, man. It was a bummer. So,
well, Derek, I got 5 rapid-fire questions here to kind of close out the night here. So let's have a little fun here closing out the show, okay?
All right.
The first one is, what is one state you want to hunt in that you haven't hunted yet?
Probably Arizona. I haven't hunted Arizona. We're right here next to it. They have good January archery stuff like we do here. So I think I'd probably do that. I'd probably want to do that.
Arizona. All right. So you can't pick your state, but what is one state you would want to move to solely for hunting?
Alaska.
Alaska?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I could live up in Alaska. I actually thought about moving up there when the what's the troopers up there in Alaska called? The state troopers out there. Whatever they're called. I'm drawing a blank right now off the top of my head, but anyways, doesn't matter. They were doing like this $10,000 sign-on bonus, and we'll give you an extra $50K to move out here. And they were doing like all these initiatives just to get people to come out there. And I was like, and I think I was a sophomore in college. I was like, you know what? I want to be a cop. I'm single. I want to move. I was thinking about going to Oregon, because everyone knows my favorite team is the Oregon Ducks. I was like, you know what? Do it in Alaska?
Yeah. I think a lot of guys have that fantasy of, at least living there for a few years to, do all the cool things and see all the animals and kind of
the
like
last frontier
thing. Yeah, for sure.
All right, third one here. What animal is on your bucket list to hunt, and with what weapon?
Man, for some reason, probably because I haven't ever had the opportunity, I want to shoot a caribou with my bow. I don't care what kind of caribou, just a caribou. I know there's
Caribou.
different kinds. Yeah, and I just think those shovel things in their, their front, how their eye guards or their main beams or their front, that shovel thing in the front. I just think that's the coolest thing, man. That's just, it's like you said, there's certain things that, like, that's freaking cool, whether it's a drop tine or a big club or whatever. I think those shovel things are badass.
Those are pretty sweet. I love seeing
Yeah.
those pictures of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any hunting superstitions? And if so, what would they be?
Oh man, you got to have your lucky underwear. You can't kill nothing if you don't have your lucky underwear on, man. So, I'm an old baseball coach, so we had plenty of superstitions. A lot of guys had to have certain things, how they had to get dressed a certain way, and for me, it was like. But the good thing about me is all my underwear has been had kills in them, so they're all lucky. They might not be mine, but they might be, one of the clients. But I remember that these are good underwear, man. I'm wearing these.
These are killer's underwear.
Yeah, you gotta have your good killing underwear on, man.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Fifth and final one.
All right.
What is one thing that you can think of that we as a hunting community should or could do to improve the hunting community as a whole?
Oh, that's easy, man. We got to get these kids involved. We got to keep. If we don't hunt with our kids, this is going to go away. In New Mexico, we lost our privilege to trap on public ground 2 years ago, and it was one of those things where I thought, no, that's not going to pass. That's not going to pass. Well, it freaking did, and it pisses me off every day that I think about. I'm looking at these furs on the wall that my sons and I trapped, and it's like, shit, man, you can't do that anymore. Not on public ground. You got to do it on private ground now. So if you don't get the kids involved, it's going to go away. There's going to be more and more hurdles, more and more things that, make it too hard to hunt. The price climb, with the point creep, you name it. There's several hurdles that in every state they put more and more hurdles there every year. And my job as an outfitter is to remove those hurdles and make it easier for dads and for hunters to come out here. So I'm trying to remove those hurdles and knowing the laws and stuff and what could be coming down the pipe in years. It's important that outfitters and guides stay plugged into their local organizations that support hunting and fight for our rights. I'm not the guy that's going to go to every board meeting or whatever or hearing or litigation meeting, but I'm going to definitely put my money into those organizations that fight for us. So and for us in New Mexico, it's the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides. And if you guys you hunters out there, if you want to come to New Mexico with an outfitter and have a good experience, I would encourage you to look at the New Mexico Council of Outfitters and Guides organization. They'll give you every member that's a part of that. And, in my opinion, most of the good outfitters are part of that network. So not that you have to hunt with us, but if you don't hunt with us, you can always call me and I can tell you what the reputation of those outfitters are, just from me being a lifelong resident and in the business for 23 years. So, and that's free advice. So you call me anytime. It's important that you do that. You do your due diligence and you check your homework and do your homework and find out if you are going to invest in those hunts and get a guide or that kind of a service. You need to be crossing all those, checking with references and doing all that stuff, because there's just too many bad people in every walk of life. And you want to protect your money, your investment, and in your experience. So that's my main advice to you guys all. And if you ever need any help out here, call me up and I'll let you know, and I'll do the best I can for you, whether it's provide a service or refer you to who's good in those areas for those certain animals. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but I'll at least be honest with you and tell you what I know.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we definitely need to get the kids out there more, and I think it's also on the parents. I think a big burden's on them. Like, listen, get your kids outside more, get them off the iPads, off the phone, stop using them as a babysitter.
Yep.
But like you said there at the end of, if I'm saving up X amount of cash to go out west and hunt, I'm going to look at it as like an investment of, all right, I'm going to do my due diligence of, all right, if I'm going to go with these people or so-and-so, I'm going to make sure I pick the right person that's got a good reputation of their core values have to line up with my core values at the end of the day for me, if I was to go out west. So,
yep, for sure, man.
Well, Derek, I just want to say thank you again, man, for coming on the show and talking about New Mexico hunting. I know I've learned a lot. I know for sure, for 100%, without a doubt question, I'm going to be hitting you up if I'm coming out west to go hunting. I'm not just saying that because I'm live on air. I really do mean that. Because like I said earlier, with you saying your prayers before we go out to a hunt and over an animal, that really hits home with me. But with that being said, Derek, again, thank you again. If people want to reach out to you and learn more, or if they want any help, any guidance, how can they reach out to you, my man?
We are all on social media, wildoutpro.com. It's short for Wilderness Outfitter Productions, but you can call me at 505-330-9776. Again, wildoutpro.com. So
I'll make sure to put that in the link.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, Brett. And,
thanks, Derek.
Look forward to your conversation in January so we can get you slated for some hunts out here. You never know, man.
Oh, man, it's like right around the corner. And real quick, I noticed when I was mowing the lawn the other day, I saw some leaves on the ground. I'm like, are those really dead leaves? And I looked up in a tree. Some of them are turning brown. I'm like, it's like August and fall's right around the corner, and it's Michigan, and it's like,
I hear you.
Well, Derek, I hope you have a good rest of your night, my man. I'll definitely hit you up later, man.
If I can help, let me know.
See ya.
Thanks, bud.
Oh, man. What an amazing and humble guy. If you need any help, obviously reach out to him, Derek. He's an amazing guy. Love talking to him. He's just, like I said, down to earth, humble guy, and it meant a lot talking to him and getting to know more about him and learning more about New Mexico. So that amazing show. I love talking to him. Can't say that enough. Anyways, that's going to conclude another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in for tonight's show. I didn't mention it earlier. It's Tuesday, August 6th. Wow. Like I said, it's August, and we're here in Michigan. We're like 40 some days out, 50 some days out from hunting season. So heck yeah. But like I said, if anyone ever wants to be a guest on the show, I'm never going to tell you no. Feel free to reach out to me on social media, or you can send me an email to brettbowman@whitetailadvantage.com. Look forward to everyone seeing them on Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube channel for our next live show with Jordan. With that being said, make sure everyone puts your quarter in the slot machine, and we'll see everyone next time.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.